Hi guys, so on seeing this, a lot of us might already know what soup this is, but for those of us that do not know, this is Oha Soup, Ofe Oha, a very popular soup among the Igbos, especially Anambra people. And I'm from Nnewi, and this is one of our favorite soups to make. So you'll be needing some cocoyams. When buying cocoyams, it's best to ask for Ede Anambra because these ones are really soft, and then they'll give you the thickness and consistency that you need for this soup. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop this out, and I'll just transfer them in the blender. Usually we do this in a mortar, but nowadays we prefer to use a blender because it makes the whole process easier and then it gives you same results. So I just added in some red oil and then some hot water just to help the texture and then the blending process. So when this is ready, I'm going to set it aside, and then I'm going to prepare my meat. I'm using goat's meat. This is like the neck part of the goat, and then I had them debone it at least to the most part, and still I came back with the bones because I'm still going to add them into the soup for some extra juiciness. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour this into the pot together with my towel and my roundabout. So that's the bone I mentioned earlier. I'm just going to add some seasoning cubes and bring this to a boil. As you know, goat's meat requires a longer cooking time, so I'm just going to make sure I cook this for at least 40 minutes max, not forgetting to add in some salt. So I'm just going to stir this properly and then cover to cook. So I'm going to be prepping some other things that I'm using to cook this. Firstly, we're going to start with Okporoko. Okporoko, as we know, stockfish head. It contains a lot of dirt, including some insects and then even chemicals which they use in preserving this. So you want to make sure you're washing this with hot water properly. You notice that once I put the hot water, I'm just going to set it aside for a minute, then come back to thoroughly wash it. Now this is my dry fish, mangala, whatever. You can even get dry catfish, it still works for this. I didn't use smoked fish, that's smoked Titus fish, but you can also add that if you like. So like I was saying, this is the dry fish. I've taken it apart, and as you can see, it has some dirt. And then most of these insects came from the Okporoko, so you just have to make sure you're washing it properly. So after I've given this a thorough wash, I'm going to introduce it into the pot. As you can see, my meat is coming together, so I'm just going to let this all cook for about 10 more minutes, and then I'll come back to that. So for this soup, I usually like to add a combination of fresh pepper and dry pepper when making soups, especially for cocoyam based soups. So I've added in my pepper, blended pepper, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in my ground crayfish. You can use ground crayfish or whatever other dry fish you might like to grind and then pour it into the soup. I left that to cook for a bit, and I'm coming back to add some more water. This now determines the quantity of my soup. So now I'm just going to go ahead and introduce the main man of the day. There's no Anambra soup or Igbo soup at all that is complete without Ogiri. Ogiri, don't mind my accent. Ogiri is basically fermented locust beans. It's usually wrapped in a lot of leaves because of the smell and also to preserve the content. So I'm just going to take this out. I'll be showing you two methods to introduce this into your soup. The first method is to add it in directly and then let it melt on its own, or you can use the second method. So I'll just go ahead and scoop out a bit of the stock and then transfer it into the spoon, then melt it before introducing it back into the pot. So this is the second method. So now I'm just going to cover the pot and let it cook for about 10 to 15 minutes more, and then I'm going to come back to season this because at this point our soup is halfway done. So I'm just going to cover this up once more to let the seasoning and the ogiri cook properly, and in about 10 minutes we'll be back for the next step. Now at this point it's time to add in our cocoyam paste. I'm using a lot of this because I like my soup really thick. I've just gone ahead to scoop this in. You might want to do this step on medium heat just to ensure that this cocoyam cooks evenly. So now I'm going to add some oil. Notice that I didn't add a lot of oil because I already added some oil into the cocoyam. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit, and I'm just going to go ahead and cover this. Now you can increase the heat just a little bit, but this has to cook for a longer time so that the cocoyam can be evenly done. Now this is after about 10 minutes, and you can see how bubbly the soup looks now. So I'm just going to add my dry pepper. You can get this dry pepper at your regular market. It's just mostly for soups, so do not confuse it for regular chili pepper. I'm just giving the whole soup a thorough mix because our soup is almost done, so you just want to make sure everything is properly combined. And from what we have here, you can see that the soup is almost done. Now for the final step, the oha leaves. I'm just going to go ahead and wash this properly with some salt rinse that off, and I'm just going to sprinkle it over the pot. Now when you're adding your leaves, the soup has to be on low heat, and you don't want to overcook the leaves so that you give the soup that fresh wholesome appearance to look as appetizing and as yummy as ever. Now at this point, two things should that be happening. There should be flies buzzing at your window or human beings. It all depends on either of which you have around, because the aroma of this soup has filled the whole place and you can't just help it, guys. So at this point, our soup is ready. Now there's no way you wouldn't be trying this out. Feel free to drop all your questions and I'll be answering them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell icon to get notified on my next post. Bye.